Hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Um, you're not able to be here. I understand you may have various reasons for not being able to join the Zoom as I announced and sent a reminder. But I perfectly understand that you may have some prior engagements, prior commitments due to which you're not here. But it doesn't really matter. Today, I thought we could, if you were here, we could have discussed the course in general, and if you had any questions, if you had any concerns, and if you had any areas in the course that you needed my um, explanation to understand or whatever, we could have done it. Now that you're not here, perhaps I take for granted that everything is fine with you. Um, Today, I thought we I thought I could share with you a few thoughts on the famous Pauline text, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, a very famous passage about love and what love is as he understood it, and what love is not, and what it does and what it does not. And I thought I could share with you. This is a famous passage, and I'm sure all of you have heard quite a lot of sermons about it, or perhaps you yourself may have preached from it, or you may have read quite a lot about it. And therefore, the moment I say 1 Corinthians 13, I'm sure you will have plenty of thoughts, a plethora of thoughts coming into your mind. But I thought I will share with you a perspective that I have gained from reading the same text over and over again several times in all my life. I have read the book several times, and for the sake of teaching the course, First and Second Corinthians, again I have read the same text over and over again several times. And every time I read, I could read or I could add a special sense to it from the vantage point of my present understanding, from the vantage point of who I am today, and from the vantage point of my understanding and my worldview. And I thought this is just to add a perspective to it. And I'm sure there's something for you to gain, like to think so. So, just to make this short presentation, I thought I will share with you some slides and talk about a few thoughts that I have in mind. Let me share the slides. Okay, I would like to call 1 Corinthians 13 love the new logotherapy. Love as the new logotherapy. Uh, what's logotherapy? Logos in Greek simply means message or word or yeah, word, let us say. And therapy means healing, therapy or healing. There was long time ago, there was a um, psychiatrist from Vienna, from Austria. His name was Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian Jew who was captured during the Nazi times, during Hitler's times, and he was sent to a concentration camp. And thankfully, after the World War, he was released. And as a result of the inhuman conditions in the concentration camps, as a result of what inhumanity to humanity means, uh, he came up with this idea of logotherapy. By logotherapy, he meant how human beings can create meanings. And make good sense of their own lives. So I'm borrowing this term from him. Logotherapy, the word logos and therapeuo, Paul himself may have known these words, but he may not have put these together to form this word logotherapy. But I'm borrowing this term from Viktor Frankl to understand love as a tool to create meaning. So, love, the new logotherapy term borrowed from Viktor Frankl. So what I intend to do is to go through a few verses in chapter 13 and reflect on each verse and see how best the text can be made good sense of. First Corinthians chapter 13, a familiar passage, but it can mean some fresh ideas and fresh insights in the way we look at it. Like, for instance, chapter 13, verse 1. If I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but I do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Here, the word tongue simply means the language. So if I speak in the languages of men or of angels, but I do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. What is love? The word that is translated love in Greek is agape. In English, it is simply translated love. But agape is a term that cannot be translated. It is one of those words that defies translation because it cannot capture the magnitude, it cannot capture the profound meaning the term agape carries. For instance, I'm sure you yourself know that in Greek, there are different terms. For instance, love between friends, philos, and love between husband and wife, eros, love between parents and children, storge. And so they had a term for whatever they mean by love between different categories in the categories of human beings in society. But if there is anything beyond these three words, if there is an idea that cannot be defined, what could that be? So they simply use the word agape to mean something that cannot be defined, that transcends translation, that transcends our understanding, something that cannot be fully understood, fully defined. So they called it agape. In Christian rendition, it is simply God's love. It is a meaning that we add, but the word agape doesn't carry the idea of God's love intrinsically. It is an added meaning, whereas it is simply a term that cannot be translated, that cannot be defined. And Paul uses the word agape as the content and the substance of speaking and language. What really impels, what really makes good sense of our language. So even in the way we speak with certain kind of sophistication, certain kind of extraordinarily wonderful, profound words, we can make good sense. So human language and speaking can be wonderful tools. But what's the substance of language? Paul would say, well, that is something that you cannot define, and he would call it agape. So what's the driving or the inner force? What's the intention of the language before it means anything at all to others? So you notice the way I have clarified it. So what really drives a human being when he speaks? So what is intended in the mind of the speaker when he or she speaks. What is the intention before what it can mean in the mind of the other? What is the intention? Sometimes we use words as some kind of a nice camouflage, something to hide. We can hide our true intentions in the way we use language. But Paul would say, well, love, if that is the substance, if that is the driving force of the spoken language, certainly um, the intention is good and it can certainly be taken well by the other. Then authenticity in speech is to affirm the authenticity of the dignity of the other as the other, and not in an I-it kind of a relationship that objectifies the other, but as I-thou, as a person to person. Let me clarify what I mean by this. Love is the authenticity, or love adds a sense of authenticity to our spoken language, and it comes from, or it is born out of, an authentic self, not a projected self, not an imaginary or imagined self, not a counterfeit self, but an authentic self, a person who knows who he is, a person who knows who she is. And it is that profound sense of self-understanding and self-perception, the language is born. But what is authentic self? Let me clarify that. An authentic self is not defined by society. An authentic self is not defined by culture. An authentic self is not defined by religion. But it is the self that is purely free, absolutely free, and free from all kinds of conditionings and all kinds of repressions. It has a mind of its own. It thinks well with free mind and acts accordingly. And if love is born out of that kind of an authentic self, authentic person, it affirms the authenticity of the other, the dignity of the other. That's what I mean. If I speak in the language of men or of angels, but I do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. So everything is hypocrisy. It is a show. It's a show that is put up. It is not genuine. It is not authentic. So it's very theatrical. It is some kind of a stage performance, like what you could say, like a stand-up comedian, you could say. Uh, and it affirms what it, rather than an I-it kind of a relationship that objectifies the other person, it affirms the I-thou, that is a person to person. What is I-it relationship? I-it relationship is to think of the other, to consider the other as an object, as a value-free or valueless individual. Whereas love affirms the other as a person, as self, in his or her own right, and affirms the dignity of the other. This is to authenticate the other's existence as equal, different, and real. You can understand that in Paul's world, which was a slave society, majority belonged to the slave category. Rome was built on the backs of the slaves. If there were no slaves, there was no Roman Empire. There were public slaves, there were private slaves. But you could think of you could think of love as the force behind our spoken language, because he's talking about language here. Then it treats the other as equal. and different and real, not as a slave, not as inferior, not as secondary, not as an object. Because we usually love things and make use of the other, rather than it should be the other way around, that we love people and make use of things. So our world has sort of deteriorated into that kind of a setting where human beings are of no value. Uh, but the kind of love that First Corinthians 13 is talking about, agape, treats the other as a person of intrinsic value and intrinsic worth, and affirms the dignity of the other. So this is verse 1. In verse 2, he says, if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. So what is gift? We usually think of charisma. We usually think of charismata um, as spiritual gifts. So Paul says, well, I may have, here he just mentions just one gift, prophecy, but one can boast of multiple gifts, and charismatic individual, very popular, very famous and renowned, and everybody knows about him or her, the talk of the town, the cynosure, whatever you may say. But what is uh, the gift? What is charisma or the charismata? What does it mean to be the most gifted, the most intelligent, and the most knowledgeable person without love? The most basic component of all human connections. So it is possible, as Paul says, that one can have all the gifts. Let's say, for the sake of it, one can have all the gifts. But it is also possible, equally, that one can have all the gifts without love. So what authenticates gifts, if however Paul understands love? What's the point of faith as one's deep conviction or religious ideology or passionate belief if it dehumanizes the other? You remember I talked about authentic other, authentic self, affirming the dignity of the other, authentic self of the other. So here I'm saying faith is usually seen as uh, some kind of a spiritual experience. But you could also talk of faith as some kind of a deep conviction or religious ideology or passionate belief. But what's the use of it if it dehumanizes the other? If it doesn't treat the other, as a human being? One way, I'll tell you, one way in our world today that religion, or even very strongly uh, Bible believing Christians uh, can dehumanize the other, is to use pejorative labels for the other. We use different labels for the other, um, all different kinds of names. Uh, that's dehumanizing. That is, it is some kind of um, an effort to undervalue the authenticity of the other as the other. So every person is defined in in terms of one's own beliefs. But, but verse 2 asks us, okay, what's the point of all these gifts? What's the sense if it basically lacks love? He says, if I have no love, I am nothing. So we could say a person may delude himself or herself thinking that he or she is full of gifts, very famous, well known, respected, and adored, and a center of attraction wherever the person goes, and all these things. But it creates a sense of delusion or some kind of an illusion that the person is full of something. Whereas Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13 that without love, there is an inner void. Inner void. It's empty. He says, I am nothing. So it is again reaffirming Paul's language. It is again reaffirming that one becomes truly oneself only if one has love. So we could seriously ask this question, what makes you you? Paul would say, well, love makes you you. You can have everything under the sun, but if you don't have love, you are absolutely nothing. The point of one's faith is its ethical and moral value and the human consequence it produces. So the point that has stuck quite heavily on me is this, that the point of anything that we claim to be is its human consequence, what it does to the other. What are the ethical or moral implications of our own beliefs? That is very important for me because I'm talking what are the ethical values? What are the moral values of what we are talking about, what we believe seriously, and the kind of human consequence it produces? So everything is said and done only in relation to the other. It's not done, it's not practiced. Love is not practiced in a spiritual campsite or in some kind of a retreat or in some kind of an abstract form, but it is exercised or it is practiced only in relation to other human beings as they are, not as people belonging to our own faith systems. Paul is not talking about that at all. How we act toward others, is the true index of one's inner character and integrity. So the other defines our sense of love. And how we act toward others is the true index of one's character and integrity. Nothing is done or practiced in isolation. No one is an island in himself or herself. Everyone lives in relation to others. And so everything that we do and say has human consequence. So he's still talking about love as the substance of our language and also as the substance of one's own being, one's own identity. He says, well, I may have anything and everything else, but without love, I'm nothing. What a profound understanding. In verse 4, he adds something more. Love is patient. He's explaining it. He's describing it. He's elaborating it. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. This is from the New International Version. So here he defines love as something, and also as something that it is not. Okay, I would say, as you can see, love is the quintessence of all virtues. So in one word, love, which as I said, that cannot be defined, that defies all our explanations, all our descriptions, all our interpretations. I would think that word sums up everything that we consider as virtue. For instance, it talks about patience, talks about kindness, humility, self-concern, self-control. And these virtues are the index of the attitude toward others, because these virtues do not exist independently of human beings. That's one thing. And these virtues are practiced in relation to the other. Love is patient because it has a recipient. And love is kind And it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. What is boastfulness? What is pride? What is envy? It is looking at the other and feeling that one is not as good as the other, and feeling that one is not as important as the other. It is an acknowledgement of one's own inferiority and inferiority complex. But Paul says that virtues can be a choice at the same time, can be a choice. It's an intentional choice. It's possible to be, or it is possible to choose to be envious, to be boastful, to be proud, to dishonor others, and to be self-seeking, and to be angry, and to be keeping record of all the wrongs others have done. But it's also an intentional choice. It's possible to choose to be exactly the opposite. It is possible to choose to love, to be patient, to be kind, to be humble, to treat the other as more important and as more honorable than oneself. And it is possible to choose to seek the welfare of the other and to be patient in any relationship. We cannot simply assume that everything will go well. Where there are human beings, there will be tensions, there will be problems, interpersonal problems, but uh, love is not easily angered. What it means is, you remember in the other slide we saw that it doesn't keep a record of the wrongs done. And so it allows the certain space for others to be fallible, for others to fail, for others to make mistakes. Why is this? The same things about others that can irritate me can also irritate somebody else about me. Like, for instance, if I'm irritated about something, irritated of something in somebody else, I may also be guilty of the same thing. You can make a big list of stuff. And therefore, I have no reason to be angry. I have no reason to be upset. So in this sense, love is not easily angered. It means love invites us to be sympathetic, to be kind, to be considerate, to be gentle. So in that sense, it is humility. Love is humility. What is humility? It's not simply saying, oh, I'm not good. I'm not good in this thing or that thing. That's not humility. Humility is the acknowledgement, a profound understanding and acknowledgement of our own vulnerability, our own failings, our own weaknesses, and that we are also incredibly capable of um, failings that we accuse others of. So, love is patience, not patient. Love is patience. Love is humility. And love is kindness. Love is tolerance. It can keep on adding. And it doesn't keep record of wrongs others have done. And why it means is that it's also possible, remember I said virtues are a choice. So it is possible to keep a record of the wrongs others have done. But it is also possible to keep a record of the good others have done, a record of how good others are. And it's possible equally to keep a record of how others have overcome their failings, their weaknesses. That's what love is all about. We can't understand. It's impossible. Humanly speaking, it is impossible. But Paul says, or First Corinthians 13 says, it is possible. It's a choice one has to make. In verse 11, it says, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. What does it say to me? I think love is also a sign of maturity. We normally think of old age as a sign of maturity. No, maturity is not a matter of age. Um, it is uh, a sign of love is a sign of maturity, a state of authentic being beyond religious ideology, dogma, and authoritarianism, and a transition towards responsible self-understanding and selfhood. So he says, when I was a child, I thought like this, I spoke like this, and I reasoned like a child. What kind of reasoning can a child have? A child's reasoning can only be to throw tantrums. If the child doesn't get what he or she wants, if the child doesn't get his or her own way, they can throw tantrums and create scene. It's possible that even as older, even as adults, uh, it's possible to behave that way. But it's also possible to become mature. And love invites us to be responsible for ourselves. Only a responsible person can behave responsibly. And only such a person, such a mature person can treat the other with love, with kindness, and with a sense of patience and humility. And he says, I put the ways of childhood behind me. So to put the ways of childhood behind me is to grow into a responsible, ethical selfhood or adulthood. Because maturity is to grow. Maturity is to advance from one stage to another stage, from one level to another higher level. And as we grow, we also become more responsible ethically. And it's owning responsibility for oneself. You understand what I'm saying? It's to own responsibility for oneself, where one's actions are born from reason and empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is to put ourselves in the shoes of the other and understanding the other as the other from their point of view. Usually, we look at the other in terms of the image of the other we have in our mind. Because anytime we talk about the other, we have an image of the other in our mind. We have a definition of the other in our mind. We have certain expectations of the other in our mind. So, when does the other become an acceptable person? Only when the other behaves according to our definitions, lives according to our definitions. Only when the other behaves according to our definitions, only when the other lives according to our expectations, only when the other rises up to our demands. So we think that the other has grown. Whereas love allows freedom to the other as the other. And that is a sign of maturity, we could think. And uh, love is not born from an expectation of reward or fear of punishment. What do I mean by this? We live in a world where we have this idea, what is in it for me? Whether we do anything for the other or whether we say anything, our primary motive is to get something out of it. In Latin, they say, well, quid pro quo. What is in it for me? We live in a world where the idea of buy one take one free is very common, or you buy 200 grams of coffee and you get 50 grams free. That's the idea. So even when we relate with other human beings, others in any setting, be it in the setting of church or communities where we live, or where we work, or in society in general, it's basically trying to get something out of the other. What is in it for me in everything that we do and say? Uh, but love simply means um, accepting the other as the other, doing good for its own sake. There is no reward. There is no reward. If we love, however we define it, others, with some expectation in mind, then we are doing business. We are bargaining. Whereas love, a mature love, a love that's born of or born out of maturity, doesn't treat the other that way. This maturity, the inner posture of love, confronts the inner emptiness and the void that is born out of the absence of love. Earlier we saw that Paul says, but even if I had all the profound gifts in the world, if I don't have love, I am nothing. So love confronts this inner void, this inner emptiness, and this absence of love. And in its place, it gives a sense of maturity, and a person's outlook changes, the inner posture changes, the disposition of the mind changes. It confronts the inner emptiness and the void that is born out of the absence of love. This is to choose meaning and to create values. So, how do we fill this void, this emptiness? It's again Viktor Frankl, whose definition of logotherapy, or the word logotherapy, I have borrowed for this short presentation. Viktor Frankl says that when human beings lack a profound sense of meaning in life, they distract themselves with entertainment or something like that. And I would think, according to 1 Corinthians 13, love can also uh, create meanings, meaning for the self and meaning for the other, in a sense of service to others, service to humanity, service to society, service to community. We can find meaning. I think it is Mahatma Gandhi, the father of independent India, is believed to have said that if one wants to find meaning in life, one must spend one's life in serving others. Maybe there is a point, and Paul would say, love is a sign of maturity. Throwing tantrums is not a sign of maturity. Just trying to get one's own way in everything, trying to dominate, trying to control the other, trying to be the center of attraction, to be popular, to be famous. Somehow, somebody has to be, the center of everything. That's not a sign of maturity. But Paul says we must leave aside or leave behind any sense of childishness and grow in our reasoning, grow in our logic and rational thinking. Then in verse 12, he says, "For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." Okay, what can we take out of it? Human beings are finite, and a sense of responsibility is born out of that realization and acknowledgement and acceptance of that finitude, the finitude of ourselves and our understanding. I only see now um, a reflection as in a mirror. We are all finite, very much limited in everything. And a sense of responsibility is born out of that profound sense of finitude. It's profound. We are very much limited. Now, I remember reading somewhere that the universe as we know it, according to science, as we have it, as we know it, is nearly 13.8 billion years old. And if it is possible at all, from one point of the planet Earth, which don't know when, because the planet Earth is also a globe, but if it is possible at all, from one point to the farthest end of the known universe, which is about 46.8 billion light years away, you have the infinitely vast and ever widening, expanding universe. Scientists say that the universe is expanding at an alarming rate. Okay. Um, and In this vast, infinite universe, where are human beings? I remember, just out of curiosity, I just wanted to find out what would happen to the planet Earth if there are no human beings. Nothing. The Earth, planet Earth, will still have different seasons. The seasons are not changing because human beings are there. It's a natural phenomena, and therefore seasons keep changing. So human beings have no value, really speaking. And if the planet Earth is itself not there, what would happen to the solar system to which it belongs? Nothing, because every other planet has its own orbit, and therefore there will not be any big change. And let us say, for the sake of it, in this vast expanding universe, where you have billions and billions of galaxies and solar systems, and perhaps different, we don't know. Maybe there are in other solar systems and galaxies, you also have Earths. We don't know. So, uh, even if this solar system to which our planet Earth belongs disappears for whatever reason, will it make any difference to the universe itself? Nothing at all. Nothing at all. So, where are we? How big are we? We are nobodies. We are nothing at all. And I think this is very profound for me. But we are nothing, and yet we are part of this infinity. We are part of this vastness, this vast expansiveness of the universe. But the universe is not dependent on us for it to be infinite. And I think, as the verse says here, we are so much limited. We have no idea of the reality as it is, because we are seeing the reality as we interpret it, as we talk about it, as we describe it. So, in this verse, I understand for myself that there is a sense of acceptance of our finitude and the finitude of ourselves and our understanding. I am limited, and therefore my understanding is also limited. This is true humility, and love is born out of that humility. We live and love in the midst of and despite our uncertainties and finitude. But isn't that a wonderful idea? We are limited, of course. And others that we meet are also limited. We are not different from anybody else. We may claim to be different. Our claims are not arguments. Our claims are nothings. Nothing. But this world, with all its limitations, with its intrinsic finitude, human beings with their intrinsic finitude have this wonderful opportunity to love, to embrace, and make a big difference. True vision that is born of love is to see the world and humanity despite this opaqueness. I think that is the true vision. That is the true vision, I would think, to see the world as it is, to see human beings as they are, and to love humanity despite these uncertainties. We don't know, and yet we love. It is the courage to meet the world face to face as it is, because we are limited. And so, what gives us the confidence? How can we dare to see the world as it is? How can we dare life as it is? How can we face our own selves? How can we encounter or confront our own finitude? Maybe if we had love for ourselves, a sense of self acceptance, a sense of meaning is born out of that self acceptance, out of that love, the courage to meet the world face to face as it is. It is to live with all openness, authenticity, and the vulnerability of our finitude. To live with all openness and live with the vulnerability. What is vulnerability? We can be easily hurt. And the universe will ignore us. We are nobodies. We don't make any difference to the universe. We are nobodies. We are limited in that sense. But it is the victory is born out of that, out of this vulnerability. What is that victory? To love. A meaning is born out of this a sense of nihilistic universe. What is nihilism? Nihilism simply means that there is no intrinsic meaning in the universe or to the universe. The universe is simply indifferent. And human beings are basically irrelevant to this universe. And this is the meaningless, it appears it is the meaningless existence. And somebody would say, well, what is absurdism in this sense? Absurdism is to look for meaning where there is no meaning. But 1 Corinthians 13 talks about the possibility that in this nihilistic world, we can create meaning through love. Meaning of life is the meaning that we give to it. And love is that tool, I would think. Love is the instrument, love is the tool or the source of meaning that we can create for ourselves and for others. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. but the greatest of these is love, verse 13. Love is the greatest of all virtues. What is love? I would take it this way. It is the unshakable faith in oneself and in humanity in general, in others. Unshakable faith. Hope is the dogged refusal not to give up on humanity. And love is the recognition of our common humanity, our common vulnerability and fragility. We belong to a kind of ecosystem. We could call humanity itself as some kind of an ecosystem. We are part of that. In the natural world, in the ecosystem, every species survives and it flourishes only in relation to the other, only by contributing to the life of the other. That's why we have the idea of symbiosis, living together. And each species thrives, flourishes by creating opportunities for the other species to live and thrive. And love, I would think, produces that kind of an ecosystem where we are able to recognize our common humanity and our belongingness to this ecosystem called humanity, and recognition of our vulnerability, meaning our interdependence and our fragility. We can be easily broken. Love helps us to realize that. I think that's a beautiful thing. Love is the new creed, the creed of new humanism. What's the love creed? It's the statement of belief. Love. Paul says love is the ultimate. Love is the end. Love is the pinnacle. Love is the source, the substance, and the summit of everything that we can think of. Love affirms our solidarity with others and authenticates others' freedom to be and freedom to choose and act. So I cannot say that when it comes to anything, I cannot say it's my freedom. But when it comes to others, I cannot say your freedom is negotiable. But love affirms our solidarity with others and authenticates others' freedom. It affirms others' freedom. We don't give freedom to the other. That's not the point. It is to affirm the other's freedom, which they already have. Freedom to be, freedom to think independently, freedom to choose and to act. And more often than not, their choices may be completely different from our own expectations. But that is the freedom that we must allow. We can't say that you're free only to choose what I want. You have the freedom only to live according to my definition. That's not freedom. That is actually controlling. That's a kind of slavery, I would think. Life in general may be indifferent and devoid of any intrinsic meaning that I have said. We live in some kind of a nihilistic world, nihilistic universe. And it appears to me, in my small way of understanding, it has no intrinsic meaning. But love is one thing that can create meaning. In such a nihilistic world, love is perhaps the only option humanity is left with to create meaning. There's nothing else. Nothing else. Earlier I talked about the idea of quid pro quo. What is in it for me? What can I gain? And get one or buy one, get one free world. But beyond all those things, in some kind of a selfless love, perhaps there is meaning. Perhaps there is a sense of authentic selfhood. Not only to love, but to allow freedom, freedom to choose, freedom to think, freedom to be different, freedom to contradict, freedom to be one's different self. Maybe it is only because of this love that this meaning creation is possible. You remember I said when we began this short presentation, I was saying the word agape cannot be defined. I kept using the word love because that's the only word that is available to us. But something that cannot be defined. Why are we different? Why do we do what we do? It's because something from within drives us, forces us, shapes our thinking, reconfigures the world, and it is because of that. So our inner world itself is turned topsy-turvy, upside down. So we are beginning to think differently. We are beginning to engage others differently. We are beginning to look at the world differently. And I think everything is born out of love. So if this is the ultimate thing, I would think as I close here, in such a nihilistic world, love is perhaps the only option humanity is left with to create meaning. So the verse 13 says, there are three things that remain: faith, hope, and love. And as I said, faith is the unshakable faith in humanity. Hope is the dogged refusal not to give up on humanity. But even with all these things, love is the greatest. And it's again a choice. Only a free being can choose. A being free from one's own conditioning. A being who is totally free of all kinds of bondages can choose. Because we are all conditioned beings, conditioned human beings. We could say, well, when we are born, we're conditioned by society, by religion to which the family belongs, or religion in which we were born. And we are conditioned by society, by world, and everywhere you go, we are conditioned. So there is absolutely no choice. But perhaps it is in choosing love, there is also a kind of rebellion against these conditionings, because this conditioning makes us profoundly selfish. But love frees us to be unselfish. Why not even selfless? And perhaps that's the only way we can create meaning for ourselves and for others. Okay, let me stop here. So we talked about 1 Corinthians 13, about love. Love is something that we cannot understand. Ultimately, the word love is only a word. It doesn't really necessarily capture the idea itself, really speaking, because every word has its own meaning. So the meaning that we give is only an etymological meaning, but it doesn't mean love is only the meaning that we give to it. The word agape, as I said, cannot be translated, cannot be described. We can describe it, but it cannot be translated. We describe it only to the extent our experience allows us, only to the extent we understand the concept given given our conditionings. But love, agape, transcends all these things. And if we can capture that for ourselves, perhaps that's the best way to create meaning, authentic selfhood, and authentic understanding of our human dignity, not only for ourselves and for others. And I hope this logotherapy will be something that we can adopt for ourselves. And in the way we treat others, we give others the same profoundly wonderful and brilliantly wonderful acceptance to others. Yeah. Okay. With this, I'll finish my presentation. And if you get to watch this, and if there are points that you want to raise with me, or any questions, or you want to share with me any insights that you yourself may have on this chapter, you're more than welcome to write to me, and we can talk to each other. Okay, thank you for watching.